Dragons are riveting creatures, huge fire-breathing reptiles that would take to the skies. Mainly in fictional fantasy settings, dragons would be these scaly, burly beasts with large wings, long tails, and the ability to projectile or spit fire. They would sit atop castles or mountains, guarding their stash of gold and trinkets as if it were their offspring. Usually, this would take place in a medieval or Viking era. The origin of dragons were never exactly made clear because they were exaggerated work of living reptiles today. The earliest depictions of dragons were very snake or serpent-like, based on Dragonology and all. They have also been inspired by dinosaur fossils. Overall, dragon mythology is split up everywhere. In Western culture, dragons are usually seen as lumbering, fire-breathing beasts with 6 or 4 limbs, whereas for the Chinese, the dragon is very snake-like, with no wings, but instead the ability to potentially hover by or simply walk. They symbolize great power, luck, strength, and are important to the tradition and culture. But what are dragons really? Did you know that the term dragon is actually a broad title? Many creatures can fall under being a dragon. In all technicality, dragons are typically large, magical, and mythical creatures, but they could also be little and without any power. Nonetheless, they are reptilian and serpent-like fictional creatures conceived either as evil or good, or perhaps just another addition to nature. Any mythological creature you could think of can be a dragon, maybe even a griffin. Who knows? It's a subjective term. There are all sorts of dragons. Some types fuse into others, and many have their own subclasses, but mainly there will be about 4 to 5 categories. First are the standard 6-limbed dragons, with a pair of wings and 4 feet. These dragons are quadruple and are the utmost common to be breathing fire or even ice. Second are wyverns. Wyverns are also typically called just dragons, but anatomically they are slightly different. Now instead of 6 limbs, they have 4, a pair of wings and 2 feet. They either stand bipedal or use thumbs on their claws to assist them in traversing. Third of all are drakes. These are dragons without any wings, and are usually much scalier or spikier to protect their vulnerable backs and limbs. Technically, even a hydra could fall under a drake because it is a land dragon with no wings, but 3 heads. Fourth are worms, or worms, which are the most serpentine of all dragons because they do not hold any limbs at all. They either move using the air or magic, or slither like giant snakes upon the ground, or even dig within the dirt. Fifth, as a close fusion with worms, are lungs, or simply known as Chinese dragons. These are mythical long beasts with 4 sets of limbs. No wings, but typically fly through the sky with magic nonetheless. A fuse between a worm and a lung is known as a lion ram, which only lack the hind legs. There are smaller subcategories, such as fays, which are perceived as littler magic dragons with 4 wings and hind wings. They may resemble a butterfly or an insect or a fairy. There are also mere sea serpents or leviathans that fall under the term dragon. Both are serpentine-like, but dwell in the ocean of gills and fins. Amphitheres are a small cross between a worm and a wyvern because they have no feet but wings, and look like a flying snake. Of course, there are other beasts like basilisks and winged hydras. But the point is, anything mythical and reptile is going to be a dragon, basically. Or really, anything mythological and a creature. Let's be honest. Of course, there are many dragons in many forms of media that already exist, each in their own depictions, anatomy, and magic. For some examples, we'll be using Charizard from Pokemon, Drogon and his brothers from Game of Thrones, Elliot from Peach Dragon, and Morkalip the Black from the book Dragon's Bane. Would they also be able to exist? We're going to find out. Normally, representations of dragons in Western media are the typical 6-limbed fire breathers, but remarkably, each dragon that was selected on this list has their own each set of attributes that stand out from the other. First off is Charizard. Charizard is a 6-limbed fire-breathing Pokemon that resembles a dragon. He is also bipedal. His arms are smaller and he has a flame at the end of his tail. Another dragon is Drogon, as well as the 2 brothers of Sarian and Rhaegal. They are anatomically structured to be wyverns. They have 4 limbs, 2 hind legs, and 2 forewings. These dragons also breathe fire. Elliot is a green giant six-limbed dragon who, you guessed it, breathes fire. One thing that's interesting and unique about Elliot is that he is more mammalistic than other dragons, than most breed at all. Now, usually dragons are reptilian, or at least bird-like, donning feathers and scales just like their counterparts dinosaurs. But Elliot has fur. He has fur, paws, ungulate ears, and cow-like nostrils. Lastly is Morcalib the Black. This dragon is almost a unique hybrid. He sort of lives only because magic lives, and is a black, very serpentine-like, six-limbed beast with cat-like attributes. He has a mane scaling around his head and a very long neck and body. Unlike other dragons, he can speak to people using telepathy or with his mind. He does not breathe fire, but spits it. So, which dragon of these wins the ability to ever so walk our planet? Which is more likely to exist? To start off the bat, all and any dragon with 6 limbs is disqualified. Any aerial animal absolutely cannot carry the weight of 2 other legs. So that immediately leaves us with Drogon and his 2 brothers. They actually aren't that suited to exist either. Upon closer inspection, when one of these mighty dragons take off, they only beat their wings a slow few times. But that's not actually really possible if you look at, physics and stuff. But, considering the overall length and weight of their body and their wingspan, I think it'd be pretty obvious to point out the flaws. It is seen these dragons could exceed massive sizes and very quickly. This makes them far too large bodies to even take off the ground. They would need larger wings and to fly at a faster speed. But if they did beat their wings at the appropriate speed, their bones would shatter. But you could also have to take in the considerations of gravity and air pressure. A creature very similar to Drogon actually existed. A creature very similar to dragons like Drogon actually existed. And they were the largest aerial reptiles to ever walk the earth, or the largest flying anything at all. Quetzalcoatlus was a pterodon in the late Cretaceous period. It had a low body mass to begin with and a gigantic wingspan. So, why did I choose all these dragons if none of them could even exist? Well, I just kind of wanted to let you know. Yeah, I don't think a dragon could ever exist. I mean, think about it. A giant fire-breathing reptile with 6 or 4 limbs, even lesser known of a chance with Chinese dragons. Yeah, I don't think that will work out. But I guess you could make it work out with a smaller dragon. It's honestly pretty challenging to find dragons biologically able to lift to our skies, on our Earth, and let alone breathe fire. But technically, dragons had already existed by means of anatomy and folklore, as implied prior, pterodons, reptilian or serpentine with wings. If a dragon should exist, it should have a low body mass, an adept tail to balance and maneuver it, and a larger wingspan. Aerial animals are built to have larger lungs and a different digestive system. Birds, for example, have cloacas and crops by means to digest and expel waste, and bats have shortened guts and extremely fast metabolism. A dragon cannot be too big. It's unlikely they could breathe fire, but like in Dragon's Bane, spit it, or spray it. The closest animal to have anything similar to fire-breathing, or fire-spitting, was a bombarder beetle, which sprays quite a volatile liquid from its vent. Although dragons may not exist in the way they are traditionally portrayed, they still do technically exist as the fossils or pterodactyls and dimorphodons in their sedimentary environments. And that, at least for me, I think is enough.